And now I'm recording that way. Checking out how it sounds. Hello, this is David Cadby with the Love Your Work podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I appreciate it so much. I'm in my podcast studio, and I don't know if I'll have another recording session in this studio, quite frankly. I've had some trouble with the Colombian government, which sounds bad, I guess. I mean, it is kind of bad. My trouble is that I applied for a business investor visa, and then I got rejected for that visa. And I've talked about rejection on this show before. I certainly experienced plenty of rejection in creative endeavors, but this is just a different level of rejection because I had planned on making this my home. This is my home to me. I've lived very many places in the world. I've been many places in the world. And this is where I want to live. And so I was very excited at the prospect of, I had 2 years worth of visas previously, and this was going to be another 3-year visa that would then get me to a residency. After 5 years, you can become a resident of Colombia. And then after another 5 years, you can become a citizen of Colombia. And I was eager to go on that track. And I made an investment. It was significant money for me. It was close to $30,000. I made an investment in a business here in Colombia, totally legitimate papers and everything. And then made the application. And then they called me to Bogota for an interview, which was kind of last minute. Have to just scramble and fly to Bogota and get a hotel and everything. And then they did the interview. And it was odd. They said, "Oh, we'll tell you via email." Usually people get their visas right there. I mean, this is what my lawyer told me. My lawyer, who supposedly processes thousands of visas a year, and says this is the first rejection that they've had for 2 years. Anyway, so they tell me that I'm going to find out via email. I got very worried about that. Thought that was a nice diplomatic way to say no to somebody. It turned out that suspicion was correct. I got an email the next day forwarded from my lawyer that the visa had expired and that I had to leave the country within a few days before my previous visa expired. And so supposedly I should be able to get back into the country as a tourist. All that progress that I've made has been lost. And I can come back in as a tourist. I can get 90 days that way, and then I can get another 90 days, 6 months, and try to come up with some other option. I'm not allowed to even apply for another visa for 6 months, and I pretty much have no hope of getting a visa with the investment that I made. And so that really stings, because the investment is less attractive without the visa than it was with the visa. And so it's a tough time right now for me. I'm going through all my possessions in my apartment to make a checklist and try to make sure that I bring the stuff that's most important in case I'm not able to get back in the country, because it's a small possibility that they will deny me re-entry, because I don't know why my visa was not accepted. According to the rules of the law, it was I met all of the requirements. And they rejected it for some reason. And I don't know if that's because just something that they didn't like. I mean, it's completely up to them. There might be laws, but it's completely up to them. And another potential thing is that maybe there's something bad on my record. I've certainly never done anything bad. Maybe there's something bad on my record, like if somebody stole my identity or something. That's the use case. That's the case where I'm paranoid that might be the case, that I'll show up and they're like, yeah, you're like an enemy of the state. You're not allowed back in, which I guess that is pretty paranoid, but it could have, maybe somebody stole my identity. I don't know. So anyway, I'm just trying to pack up everything that I think is most important and make an inventory of everything else so that if I'm not allowed back into the country, my poor girlfriend, would have to come into my apartment and clean up my stuff and find a place to put it. And then we would have to hope that I could find a way to get back in the country. So sometimes life serves you a shit sandwich. I view this as merely a shit hors d'oeuvre. and hopefully it will all work out. I do feel starting to feel optimistic. It's been a few days since I got the news, so I've started a process through all the different options and talked to dozens of people about my options. And so I'm starting to come up with plans or ideas. And of course, it's an adventure, because I've got to get out of the country. I've got to do some traveling, which I haven't done a lot of lately. And then there's potential that I might have to do more traveling because I don't want to return to the United States. I just don't want to live there. And it would be an opportunity to live in other places in the world that I haven't lived if I am not allowed in Colombia. So I do come to you from my podcast closet in Colombia, but I don't know how much longer that's going to be the case. I might be coming to you from a Holiday Inn in Lima, Peru, or something like that at some point. But fortunately, I have gotten the podcast production down into a system enough so that I can do a lot of recording in advance and release episodes later. And so hopefully this will continue to be kind of a studio quality podcast with amazing guests and everything. And, this is very disruptive thing to have to do this last minute traveling to move out of the country or get out of the country really quickly and everything. It definitely takes away from working on the business, working on the podcast, and that really sucks financially because, I'm barely getting by living in Colombia anyway with the work that I do. So this is an extra disruption on top of all the travel costs and the cost that there was for the visa and this investment that I made and stuff. So it's a good time if you've been thinking about supporting the show on Patreon to do that. That's at academy.net/donate because it would really help to have your support and to keep this show going because honestly, with the way things are, the different possible scenarios that there are, it is a possibility that there will be, I don't know, either I'll miss some weeks or I might have to decide that I can't do it. I don't know what's going to happen at this point right now. All I know is I have a plan to leave the country. I have a plan to try to come back into the country. I'm hopeful that I will get back into the country, but with the way things have been going, I don't want to take anything for granted because maybe that's what I did with the previous things and I got really blindsided and it's been very heartbreaking. And harrowing was a great word for it that another expat described. And this is part of the expat life. This is part of the digital nomad life, is that if you're going to go live in other countries, you have to not only follow their rules, but sometimes even when you follow their rules, you are still at their whims. So anyway, just wanted to give you that message. I didn't even plan on recording this. I was just warming up. But it turned out to be something that I'd like to say and share with you. And so just wanted to let you know that was going on. Episodes should be cranking out as normal for the next couple months or so. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the show and for your support. And I hope to keep bringing you episodes. So thank you.